What would you do if your family gave away your house at your own birthday party? My vision narrowed to a pinpoint as the words sliced through the festive chatter. I have a special announcement, my sister Brielle said, her voice bright and syrupy, cutting across the clinking of champagne flutes and polite laughter in the Morgan Estates grand ballroom. Dad has given me the most incredible gift. She paused for theatrical effect, her eyes scanning the room, landing on me with a sugary smile. Avery's house. The crystal glass in my hand nearly slipped through my fingers. Around me, relatives and business associates paused mid-conversation, their smiles faltering. I watched the flicker of confusion spread, then fade into forced smiles and stunned applause. Some looked at me. Others deliberately looked away. But every single one of them heard it. Every one of them knew what that house meant. The house I'd bought. The home I'd built after working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing friendships, relationships, and most of my 20s to expand our family company, Morgan and Vale Hotels. My sanctuary was being gifted away like party confetti at my own birthday party. My mother, Elaine, stood near the head table, smiling like a pageant queen. My father, Richard, didn't even look at me. He stared into his wine like it held the answer to a question no one dared ask. Since Avery is always at the office, Brielle continued flipping her bleached waves with mock concern. She doesn't really need such a big house. I'll put it to better use. My breath caught. She said it as if I were a ghost, as if I hadn't bled for this family, as if the years I spent running operations in Milan, Miami, and Tokyo alone meant nothing. My name is Avery Morgan. I'm 28, and I'm the reason Morgan and Vale doubled its revenue in 6 years. But that didn't matter. Not to them, not anymore. I'd always been the responsible daughter. That was the role assigned to me, as if someone had carved it into stone before I could speak. I stayed behind while Brielle, the family's self-declared face of the brand, took Instagram selfies on yachts in Mykonos. I worked double shifts while she did brand deals for lip gloss she never wore. You have to understand, Dad would say, sipping scotch in his oak-paneled study. This business requires sacrifice. You're good at that. She's good at image. Meanwhile, my mother's go-to excuse was always the same. She's young Avery. Let her enjoy life. She'll mature eventually. But Brielle never matured. At 25, she still lived in the main house, still used the black Amex, still saw content creation as a full-time career. And somehow they enabled it. Every single time. They never noticed me slowly fraying at the seams when I gave up my Paris trip to clean up a crisis in the Barcelona hotel, or when I skipped Thanksgiving to rebuild the Charleston team after Dad's old VP embezzled funds. They never noticed, because I never complained. I showed up. I delivered. I kept the Morgan legacy afloat, so I stayed silent, even as the applause echoed in the ballroom, even as Brielle waved like she'd just won Miss America, even as the cameras from the PR team captured every second for our brand's social media. But inside me, something shifted. It wasn't rage, not yet. It was cold, like the air had been sucked from the room. Like the crystal glass in my hand had turned to ice. A brittle, beautiful kind of cold. The kind that doesn't scream or shout. The kind that plans. That night, as I sat in my car, still parked beneath the estate's sweeping portico, I didn't cry. I didn't drive off. I just sat there gripping my keys so hard the jagged teeth left marks in my palm. This wasn't just about a house. It was about being erased. Stripped of my worth in front of family, business partners, and stakeholders. For years, I thought that if I worked hard enough, sacrificed long enough, I'd earn their respect. Maybe even their pride. But what they gave me was proof. Proof that no matter what I did, I'd never be more than a resource convenient, when useful, invisible, when not. I looked up at the house. My house. The one I decorated with my own hands, where I spent sleepless nights drafting global strategy decks, where I cried after every brutal quarterly review, where I told myself, this is yours. You made this. No one can take it from you, except they just tried to, except they were planning to. And that's when I knew they were coming for more than my home, and They were coming for everything I had built, but I wasn't about to let them. 6 months before that party, the first crack in the facade appeared. It came in the form of Ethan Clark, our newly hired financial advisor. Sharp eyes, methodical tone, and the kind of quiet integrity that made you want to sit up straighter when he entered the room. At first I thought he was just another numbers guy, another analyst passing through the revolving door of Morgan & Vail, destined to burn out trying to untangle our luxury empire's sprawling finances. But Ethan wasn't just another suit. He saw things others missed, including something I never expected. One afternoon, he knocked on my office door and stepped inside, carefully closing it behind him. He looked calm, but there was tension in his posture, like he was holding back something big. "Avery," he said, voice low and deliberate, "I've been reviewing the last 5 years of expense reports, and I need to show you something." He laid out the papers like a surgeon exposing something rotten beneath the skin. Airfare to Saint-Tropez, 5-figure invoices for designer handbags, a business brunch at a Miami rooftop club that cost more than some of our hotel suites, all logged under marketing, social image, and influencer campaigns, and every single one tied to Brielle. She's classified herself as the company's brand ambassador, Ethan said, tapping a column of numbers with a pen. But this isn't branding. It's indulgence. Nearly $2.1 million in 5 years. I couldn't move. My fingers hovered above my keyboard, frozen. "She's been siphoning company funds," I whispered. He nodded. "It's being approved every time." That night, I found my father in his study swirling a glass of whiskey like it contained wisdom. I dropped the folders onto the table between us. I know he said before I could even speak. I blinked. "You what?" I approved it. Every expense, every trip. $2 million, Dad. He took off his glasses, rubbing his temple like I was the one giving him a headache. "Look, Avery, you have your way of contributing, and she has hers." My mouth went dry. "You're telling me that wearing sponsored dresses on Instagram is equivalent to saving a failing hotel in Singapore? It's different, sure, but it's all part of the business. No apology, no shame, just a shrug and a sip of scotch." That was the moment the last thread snapped. I realized what I'd been denying for years. My father never intended for me to inherit leadership. I wasn't the future of Morgan & Vail. I was the labor. Ethan became my confidant. Slowly, cautiously, we began reviewing everything. The more we dug, the worse it got. Brielle wasn't just bleeding the company, she was emboldened by the silence of our parents, by their complicity. "She's not doing this alone," Ethan said one evening, voice tight, as he scanned a set of legal drafts. "What do you mean they're transferring assets? Significant ones?" My stomach turned. "What assets?" He hesitated. "Your house." My chair scraped back as I stood heart-pounding. "That's not possible. I bought that house." "Technically," he said gently, "you bought it using company bonuses. They're classifying it as a corporate-owned property, allocated to an executive. The ownership is ambiguous." I stared at him, everything inside me going cold. "I overheard your father talking with the legal team," Ethan continued. "They think the transfer won't raise red flags if it's internal." They didn't know I was still in the building. It wasn't just betrayal, it was theft. Institutional, calculated theft. They were trying to erase the only thing I truly owned. My house, the one place that belonged to me, the one space where I could breathe, was about to be signed over to someone who hadn't earned a damn thing. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the documents scattered beside me. And in my hand, I clutched the house key like a lifeline. This wasn't just about money. It was about respect, about identity, about being seen. And if they wanted a war, they picked the wrong Morgan to betray. The days after Ethan's revelation blurred together. I floated through boardrooms and spreadsheets, smiling when I had to, nodding when expected. But under the surface, something had changed. I wasn't just angry, I was awake. At night, I still returned to the house. My house. I would run my fingers along the stone countertops I chose myself, sit silently in the reading nook I built with my own 2 hands, and listen to the stillness. as if the walls were waiting for me to defend them. The key to the front door never left my pocket. My parents had barely mentioned the upcoming transfer. I suppose they assumed I wouldn't push back, that I'd accept it like I'd accepted everything else. But I wasn't 17 anymore. One morning, I walked into the office and found Brielle waiting at my desk, perched on the edge like she owned the place. Her heels sparkled, her hair was curled, her smile was weaponized. "You look tired," she said sweetly, flipping through one of my financial reports without reading a word. "I am," I replied flatly. "Some of us actually work." She ignored the jab. "Anyway, just wanted to say thank you for the house. It's going to look amazing in my next video series. I already have a designer coming in to redo the kitchen. That old backsplash was tragic." I said nothing. "Not yet." She leaned closer, her voice dropping. "You always act like you're so above it all. But let's be honest, Avery, you're just jealous." I turned slowly, meeting her eyes. Jealous of what exactly? Her eyes sparkled with mock innocence. Of me, of how much easier things are for me. You grind, I glide, and somehow I always come out on top. I stared at her for a long moment, and then I smiled. It was small, cold, dangerous. "You're not wrong," I said softly. "It has been easier for you. But the difference between us, Brielle, I earned everything I have. You were handed it and still managed to waste it." Her lips twitched. "Whatever. You'll understand one day. Family means sharing, sacrificing." A strange laugh escaped me. It wasn't amusement, it was disbelief. Sacrificing, I had sacrificed everything. My 20s, my relationships, my health. And now they were asking for more. They weren't asking. They were taking. Ethan and I started meeting after hours. Late evenings in my office became strategic planning sessions. He brought data. I brought insight. Together we built a timeline, every misused dollar, every suspicious transaction, every shady signature. He was the one who reminded me, "You're the majority shareholder, Avery. You just forgot that part." Years ago, for tax benefits, my father had allocated a larger percentage of stock to me under the assumption I'd never challenge him, that I'd never learn how to wield it. He was wrong. "We don't just need to stop the house transfer," Ethan said. "We need to restructure the entire company before they bury it in another scandal." He looked at me, his voice steady but urgent. "This isn't just about revenge, it's about survival." The final straw came 3 days before my birthday. I overheard my mother on the phone while walking past her office. "She'll understand eventually," she said softly. "This is for the good of the family. Brielle deserves something to call her own. Deserves." The word rang in my ears like a siren. Deserve, Brielle didn't know the meaning of the word. I stood there in the hallway staring at the floor, fists clenched. They weren't sorry. They weren't even hiding it. They were planning to take my house on my birthday, in front of our entire extended family, like it was a trophy, like I didn't matter, like I had never mattered. That night I stood in the living room of the house I had nearly lost and made a silent promise. No more silence, no more waiting. This time the party would end differently. "You're right, Brielle," I said as the room fell silent. "I am always at the office, and while we're making announcements." The night of my birthday arrived like a storm cloud in disguise. The Morgan Estates ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and laughter that felt a degree too sharp. Everyone who mattered to our family, from local officials to global investors, was there. A band played softly near the back, caterers floated by with trays of caviar and champagne, and PR photographers hovered in the corners like vultures dressed in black. I wore navy, power navy, not a birthday dress, a war uniform. I hadn't told Ethan what I was going to do, not fully. He suspected, of course. But even he couldn't have known how far I was prepared to go. I saw them before they saw me. Richard standing proudly near the drinks table, Elaine flitting through guests with that ever-polite socialite smile, and Brielle in a pale pink gown that probably cost more than my first car. She spotted me, smirked, then stepped onto the small stage at the front of the room, tapping a crystal flute with manicured precision. "I have a special announcement," she said again, milking it like a stage actor. My stomach tensed, but I didn't flinch. "Dad has given me the most incredible gift," she began. "Avery's house." The applause came again, this time slower, more uncertain. But I didn't sit back. I stood up, deliberately, calmly. Every eye in the room turned toward me as I pulled a leather folder from my handbag. "You're right, Brielle," I said, walking to the center of the ballroom. "I am always at the office." My voice echoed smooth and sharp as glass. "And since we're making announcements tonight..." I opened the folder slowly, letting the tension breathe. I have a few of my own. The room fell still. Even the band stopped playing. As acting CEO and majority shareholder of Morgan & Vail Hotels, I began scanning the stunned faces of executives and board members seated near the front. Effective immediately, all personal expenses will now require full board approval. That includes executive family members. Brielle's smile slipped. Richard straightened in his chair. Elaine's champagne flute paused halfway to her lips. Second I continued, "I have initiated a full external audit of the company's financial records for the past 5 years, including all influencer and marketing expenditures. I locked eyes with my sister. That includes anything charged under your brand image." My father tried to interrupt. "Avery, this isn't the time or place, isn't it?" I asked, turning to him. "Didn't you use my birthday party to announce that you were giving my home away?" the crowd murmured. Business partners leaned closer. Board members began whispering, shifting in their seats. From across the room, Ethan stepped forward and began handing out folders. Quietly, methodically. "In those folders," I said, "you'll find evidence of over $2 million in misappropriated funds, labeled as marketing, but spent on designer handbags, private jets, luxury hotels, all with no oversight." Brielle's face drained of color. "This is ridiculous," she spat. "Dad approved every expense. I'm the face of the brand." "The face of the brand," I echoed. "Then maybe you can explain this." I pressed a button on the nearby projector. The screen behind me flickered to life, flashing images of champagne-soaked parties, yachts in Monaco shopping halls tagged, none of which tied to any measurable ROI, all logged under marketing. The room turned cold. Elaine stood up, flushed with fury. "How dare you embarrass your sister like this in front of everyone?" I met her gaze without blinking. "How dare you humiliate me by trying to take the only thing I truly own on my birthday?" Richard stepped forward, trying to steer the chaos. "This is a family matter. I ask that all non-family members excuse themselves." "I'm afraid that's not possible," Ethan interjected, standing tall beside me now. "Since this involves potential corporate fraud, the board has a right and a legal obligation to stay." It all unraveled quickly after that. Brielle started crying, insisting she didn't know how bad it was. Elaine accused me of trying to destroy the family's reputation. Richard begged for calm and discretion, but I didn't flinch. I cleared my throat. "There's more." I pulled out a second stack of documents. Effective immediately, the house transfer to Brielle has been blocked. I've also filed a legal injunction prohibiting any asset reallocations without unanimous board approval. "You can't do that," Richard snapped. "I already did," I said. "You structured the shares years ago for tax sheltering. I hold 52%. I am the controlling owner." His face reddened. That was just a technicality. I was supposed to retain actual authority. A board member near the front muttered, "Thank you for confirming that on record." Brielle lurched toward me, red-faced, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "You're just a bitter, lonely witch. You're jealous of me." Before she could get closer, Ethan calmly stepped between us. "Careful," he said, voice firm. "Attacking a corporate executive during a formal board event carries legal weight." She froze. Her chest heaved. I looked at her not with anger, but with something colder. Pity. "Jealous," I said quietly. "You've never worked a day in your life. You've spent more than some of our hotels earn in a quarter, and tonight you tried to steal my home." "You can't do this," my father growled. I looked him in the eye. I already did. The room had turned from glittering celebration to tense tribunal. Board members flipped through documents with furrowed brows. Some looked sick, others looked impressed. My parents paced like animals in a cage. Brielle stood, frozen eyes darting from face to face, unsure who still saw her as golden. "I'm proposing 3 immediate reforms," I said, keeping my voice calm and clipped. "First, freeze all personal expense accounts for executive family members until further notice." My mother gasped. "You can't just push us out like this." "I'm not pushing anyone out," I replied. "I'm professionalizing the company, something I've been doing alone for the last 6 years. Elaine's eyes flashed, but she said nothing. Second, an independent forensic audit of the last 5 fiscal years. All marketing, travel, and executive budgets will be reviewed. Richard opened his mouth to object again, but I raised a hand. Third, a full restructuring of the executive leadership team. All roles will be merit-based moving forward. No more vanity titles, no more invisible contributions. For a heartbeat, no one said a word. Then slowly, one board member raised their hand, then another, and another. A vote unofficial, but loud and clear. The reforms passed. Across from me, Richard slumped in his chair. The proud, impenetrable patriarch looked suddenly old. "You're destroying this family," he said, voice quiet now, bitter. "No," I said. "I'm saving what's left of it." Brielle tried again, her voice trembling. "Avery, please. We're sisters. You don't have to do this. Not like this." For a moment I hesitated, not because I doubted myself, but because for once her voice carried something real, not performance, not manipulation, desperation. But it was too late. "Where was that sisterhood," I said slowly, "when you smiled and announced that my house, my home, was yours to take?" She swallowed. I stepped forward. "Where were you when I pulled double shifts in Tokyo rebuilding our brand's reputation? Where were you when I worked 3 Christmases in a row missing everything so this family wouldn't lose the Barcelona hotel?" No answer. You weren't there. But I was. And you all let me believe that was enough. That it was honorable to sacrifice, that maybe if I worked hard enough you'd see me, respect me. I turned to the board. But what you gave me was silence. And now I'm done being silent. Ethan walked to the front, placing a final stack of papers on the table. "There's something else we need to discuss," he said, voice even but sharp. "The private accounts." Richard's eyes went wide. Elaine's hand shot out, gripping the table edge. "No," my father muttered. "Please. Not this." But it was already happening. The documents outlined a network of quietly siphoned funds, shell accounts funded by the company under vague consulting labels, luxury real estate purchases, private retreats. It wasn't just Brielle. It was them. All of them. "It's not just unethical," Ethan said. "It's criminally negligent, possibly prosecutable." Elaine's voice trembled. "Everything we did for the family." I stared at her. "No, you did it for yourselves, because it was easier to spoil Brielle than teach her how to stand, easier to steal than earn, easier to pretend I didn't exist." The room erupted. Board members were calling legal teams. Someone was filming. A junior executive had tears in her eyes. I think she'd looked up to Brielle. Not anymore. I gathered my notes and stood straighter than I ever had. "Meeting adjourned," I said. "Reforms take effect immediately." And with that, I walked out of the ballroom, not as a daughter, not as a ghost in my own family's story, but as the woman who reclaimed the empire she built. "You ruined my life," Brielle hissed. I smiled. "No, Brielle. I gave you a chance to finally live one." 3 days after the party, Brielle stormed into my office. No makeup, no camera crew, no perfect lighting, just rage. "You humiliated me," she shrieked, slamming the door behind her. "I lost everything, my role, my platform, my reputation. I didn't look up from my laptop. You still have a name on the payroll. You're not unemployed." She scoffed. "An entry-level job in the marketing department? Are you serious?" I finally met her eyes. Starting salary just like everyone else. You can either learn what the business actually is or go back to your sponsored skincare deals. Your choice. Her voice cracked. You're awful. I hate you. I let that hang in the air. Then calmly replied, No, Brielle. I'm the only one in this family who actually gives a damn about your future. The fallout was brutal. The audit uncovered more than we'd expected, nearly $3 million in misused funds, including international properties bought under fake vendor names and business retreats in Tahiti that were nothing but family vacations. Brielle lost all public-facing privileges in the company. My mother tried to push back, but the board had seen too much. My father, he withdrew, quiet, distant. Perhaps for the first time in his life, ashamed. And yet something unexpected happened. People started working harder. The team, the real team, rallied. Departments that had been suffocating under nepotism finally had a voice. We brought in outside leadership, implemented proper checks and balances, and rewrote the corporate code of ethics. And Brielle Shi showed up, late at first, bitter, dismissive. But then, something shifted. She started taking notes, asking questions, pitching real ideas. The first time she stayed past 5 o'clock, I almost didn't believe it. The second time, I quietly emailed HR to give her performance tracking. 2 years later, Morgan & Vail is the strongest it's ever been. Brielle is no longer the face of the brand, but she is a respected strategist in our digital marketing team. She earned her promotion, not through charm, but through actual results. My parents still live in the estate, but they no longer hold corporate titles. Richard consults occasionally. Elaine volunteers with a hospitality mentorship program she helped launch, perhaps finally understanding what it means to build something instead of inherit it. And me, I'm still in the house. My house. The one they tried to take. The one I protected not because of the square footage or the view or the wine cellar, but because it was the one place in this world that was mine. It became a symbol of survival, of resilience, of drawing a line and refusing to let anyone cross it, not even blood. Ethan and I grew close through the storms. What started as a professional alliance slowly turned into something deeper, something rare. After 18 months, we got married, quietly. On the balcony of the house, they tried to steal. No grand announcements, just peace. And love built on mutual respect. He gave me a piece of advice early on that stuck with me. Sometimes you have to shake the family tree, Avery, let the rotten fruit fall, make room for the roots to breathe. Back then, I didn't fully understand, but now I do. Sometimes loving your family means holding them accountable. Sometimes protecting yourself means standing completely alone until the truth stands beside you. And sometimes, the very thing they tried to take becomes the symbol of everything they can never steal. My name is Avery Morgan. I am CEO, I am daughter, I am sister, and I am no longer silent. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, someone you thought was family? Share your story in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more stories that remind us strength sometimes looks like saying no.